Over this last couple of weeks, I've sold probably close to £50,000 worth of silver and gold. It's been a fantastic success, but I've learned a lot of really interesting insights. And the first being that certain silver and gold sell a lot easier than others. And something like this big, beautiful Queen's Beast 1 kilo completer would be a pretty hard sell. So what does that mean that we as buyers should be targeting for our purchasing? Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for another precious metal ramble all about buying and selling gold and silver. Now, I've been learning so much over this last couple of weeks with the Backyard Bullion Buyers Club. There are a lot of really interesting insights that are showing themselves to be true for sellers and buyers alike. And I do think that what we've got here is something pretty special. So I want to share a few updates on the buying and selling, some of the things that, again, I've observed this week. And also, I want to do some thank yous as well, because the support that I'm getting from the community, not just the buyers and the sellers, but everybody here on YouTube and the Silver Forum and everywhere is just phenomenal. So a lot to get through today. I hope you enjoy it. If this is your first video and you don't know what I'm talking about, I am growing this initiative of selling people silver on their behalf. I'm completely open and upfront and honest about it. I get a small cut, £1 an ounce for silver at the moment. That's one thing that we might look to maybe change in the future, but with caution. And then it's easier for you to sell. You get a better price than you would for dealers. So that's the nuts and bolts of it, and it's gone exceptionally well. So now, insights. It's, I think, quite well. In fact, we'll keep the Griffin out here whilst I'm talking about premiums. So premiums is a really interesting thing, and that's one thing that we as silver stackers in the UK have to contend quite a lot with when it comes to our precious metals. We buy at a premium. It's a higher premium than other countries because of the VAT, the sales tax that is levied on these items. If you buy brand new from a dealer, the premium is already on it from the world being crazy as it is. You never buy at spot price unless you're buying a big old chunky bar. And the closest I've got to spot so far, I think, is from somewhere like Baird & Co, which is like 4 or 5% over spot. But then you add the VAT, 20% over. So you get the point here that it's very expensive. And what I've noticed is that there is most certainly an appetite for silver on the second-hand market around the between 25, anything I think 25 and below just sell very quickly. But anything from 25 to £28 an ounce, depending on the item, is I think acceptable for a lot of people. We've sold a lot of things on our Bullion Buyers Club for those prices, and they go quick as well. But when we have certain things which are a little bit more premium, they do tend to stick around a little bit longer. An example would be, in fact, let me just grab one now. An example would be the Geiger kilo bars that we had this week. They have now all sold, but it took a little longer than, for example, other bits of silver. Now, when you do the calculation of prices per ounce, this worked out at about £28.50 per ounce. So it's not a huge amount different to where we might be selling things like Britannia's £27 an ounce earlier this week, although now spots come down a little bit. The next batch would have been, I think, around 26, 25. So there's this appetite for, I think, certain types of silver. Premium stuff like these Geiger bars, it was an interesting one. I thought they were incredibly well priced, and genuinely I thought they'd all sell within a day, but it took the better part of 4 days, I think, in total to get them all gone. But they still went, which I think is really impressive. Again, though, that's the £28 an ounce mark that we're looking at here. Anything that I think that we would look to sell for those higher prices raises interesting questions from both my perspective as the person, the intermediary, and also as the seller, and also, I suppose, as the buyer as well. Now, this Griffin, for example, let's talk about this. If we put this up for sale on the open market, what would be a fair price for it? Some people might say a fair price would be £300. I think that would be a steal. I think this would sell within seconds of me sending out a newsletter for £300. Would it sell for £400? Probably. Let's be quite frank, these are like hen's teeth or griffin's teeth. They do not come up very often. And when they do, crikey, they are sought after. Would it go for more? £500, £50 an ounce? Probably not. I think certainly from my perspective as the intermediary, I wouldn't feel right about selling this for £500. So what I really envisage going forwards for the Backyard Bullion Society, for the Backyard Bullion Buyers Club, is to have fair priced items that I think do reflect a good deal for the buyers. And I want to prioritize perhaps more the buyers getting a better deal than the sellers, because what I don't want is I don't want opportunism from sellers. I don't want people sending me in things like those Griffins or maybe a kilo Queen's Beast completer here and asking for really very optimistic price points. You do see a lot of these on places like eBay, and the sellers will be asking for, stupid money, £2,000, and they put that up there just in case some poor, uneducated, unknowing person walks along and goes, "That's fantastic, I'm going to buy that," or they can't be bothered to scour the internet for just the few minutes that it would take to tell them that that's a really bad price. So that I don't want to ever happen. Now, fortunately, I don't think had any sellers, certainly any sellers that I'm working with right now, come forward with that. There have been a few sellers that have got in touch where I've given them good quotes for what they can realistically look to achieve in a quick turnaround. And bear in mind, I don't want to hold stock for weeks and months at a time unsold. I have the responsibility of keeping it safe, storing it, insuring it. There are a lot of other things to think about from my perspective. So I don't want somebody to send me some really high premium stuff and it just not sell. That's not the good look for me. It's not a good use of my time, and it's just not something that I'm interested in. So from that perspective, I do think it is interesting going forwards about the premium stuff, and I do want to, I think, focus on getting that price for the buyers better maybe than the sellers. I think that will help avoid these situations where speculative sellers will want to look to get out of some silver, and they send in something that they think they can get, £350 on eBay for, when realistically they're only going to get 260, 270. But I can vet those at the point of entry when someone makes an inquiry. I always do that right now. My go-to kind of response is to say, "Thank you very much for getting in touch. If you could please provide a list of what A, you've got, and B, what your lowest acceptable price is." And if they come back with some, higher than optimistic prices, then I can always try and manage their expectations. And that's one thing that was actually really good with the seller of these Geiger bars. So, of course, without going into massive amounts of personal details, the gentleman that was selling these needed to sell them. He's got money requirements. That's, part of life. Everybody needs to raise funds for things at some times. And these are sometimes hard to sell, and they do take time, especially when you are asking what I would say is like the market rate, which would be like £950 to £1,000 for these. I've definitely seen them sell at that point. These I put up for sale for him on his behalf at £850. So I do think that represented a great deal for people. These don't come along very often, and the people that bought them hopefully will be enjoying them for a very long time, and will have them as a great opportunity to maybe even make a little bit of money on in their own right in due course. But he was really willing to work with me on that. And a similar thing with some of the Queen's Beast coins that we had come through earlier in the week. We had some of the Lions and the Griffins. They were sold, the Lions for £60 each, the Griffins for £70 each. And I think those are really realistic prices. I've seen certain individuals look to sell those kind of coins at well in excess of £100 each and just not get anywhere. And I think that's really interesting, because I do see that a lot on places like the Silver Forum, and I'm not really on Facebook, but I do get sent the odd link to various sort of sales posts and things like that. And I just see so much silver get put up for sale at prices which I would be like astounded if anybody actually bought. But they do that because somebody might do it, in my opinion. I think that's really sad as well, especially on places like the Silver Forum, which have an incredibly shrewd community of buyers that will know straight off the bat whether or not something is sort of fair market price or value. And often you do get these, these price points which are unrealistic, and these items, these listings, just go on and on without sales, and then the seller will bump, and that's the phrase that they do to put it at the top of the sales threads every day. They will try and bump that. Got a bit of dust on there. There we go, nice and clean again. You get all of these bumped sales threads, and they never go, they never sell, and it's just a waste of everybody's time, quite frankly. So really is interesting to see how we can find this happy medium point for all of the buyers and also the sellers too. And I think the openness and transparency that we have for that will just yield dividends over time for how we actually achieve that. Now, in the second part of this video, I do want to put a few thank yous in place and talk a little bit. Oh, I just realised that's the outside of the coin capsule. Let's put the capsule lid back on. There we go, for any of you screaming at me, goodness me. Right, so a few thank yous in here. I do want to say a personal thank you to, well, quite frankly, everybody who's commented on the other video that we did, talking about being a little bit overwhelmed by these situations and this whole thing. It's really great to hear all of your feedback on the situation. I do want to set the record straight, though. Quite a lot of you actually were talking about how I should hire somebody to do this for me, as it's a proven concept and it will, it'll also make me money and give somebody a job, and everyone will be happy and I won't have the stress of it. It's a great idea in principle, isn't it? But coming from a background that actually employed people before and knows the inner workings of that whole thing, yeah, no, it's not. It really is not. The fact that everybody is so positive about this whole idea is great, but we are in the honeymoon period of it. I've just started promoting it. I've just started talking about it. It's coming out. Lots of sellers coming out the woodwork is great. How sustainable that would be over the long term is anybody's guess. Perhaps we're just hitting that honeymoon period now, getting all of these people out and interested in what we've got for sale. So I don't really want to hire somebody on the chance that things won't do very well, and that's not great for me. Hiring somebody in their own right as well, goodness me, we work out of our own home, the kitchen table business. So where do I put someone? Where do I get them to go working? It's all of these things to consider. So there are a lot of pitfalls for hiring anybody to consider, and I don't want that. And I've said that before. Our business has been to a point where it grew to a point where I could have employed somebody, could have employed multiple people actually, and continue to grow the business. Not just this Bullion Buyers Club, but the poured silver side of things and YouTube. But I didn't. I chose not to. I chose to scale things back a bit because I got to the point where I was very, very stressed about everything. I was constantly doing stuff for the business in the backgrounds. I wasn't able to focus on the things that I wanted to do, content creation here on YouTube and pouring silver. And it was really, really hard. It really was. So I took that decision along with Mrs. Backyard Bullion, who does play a really integral role in the background of everything we do. Whilst she might not, sort of do a lot of the groundwork here and there on the day-to-day activities, the fact that she's there in the background helping and doing all of these other things in life is just immeasurably beneficial to my well-being and livelihood. So maybe at some point in the future, she's got her own job as well. She's got her own career that she wants to focus on, and that's great. But, maybe at some point in the future, if she wants to take a step back from all of that, then she can. And I would happily employ Mrs. Backyard Bullion. But from right now, the perspective I'm in, I do what I do not necessarily to earn the best wage in the world. And, could earn a lot more money doing other things, but I enjoy what I do. And when you find something that you love, when you find something that's not a job, then if you make money from it, it's a no-brainer to keep doing what you're doing and love what you're doing. And I will continue to do what I do whilst I love it. And if I get to a point, again, like I did last week, where I was pretty, honestly, quite stressed about everything, pretty overwhelmed, then I'll take a step back, like I have. I've turned sellers away that want to sell thousands of ounces. Could sell them and make £1,000 within a few days. That would be great. But the amount of work and stress that would put me under, and the amount that it would put Mrs. Backyard Bullion under, and also just stretch my emotions to breaking point, I'm fine, thanks. I have said plenty of times before that I'm not in this to make millions. I am in this to have a small, sustainable lifestyle that gets me up in the morning, really motivates me to continue to do what I like to do. And that's the best thing that I can recommend to anybody out there. Not disparaging anybody who wants to go and have a high-flying career that does very well for themselves, but from my perspective, I am very happy. with what I've got, and I don't want to jeopardize that by pushing myself and stretching myself too thin. To quote Bilbo Baggins, like butter spread across too much bread. I do not want that to happen to me. So, where we're going forward from now. Oh, just one last thing as well. Thank you as well to all of the US and Australian, weirdly, like Australia and US, two huge groups of communities that have got in touch, asking to be part of the Buyers Club, and asking when we're going to roll out a US edition of it. Let's just think logically about this. People send me the silver to sell on. I can't do that if I'm not in the US or Australia. Feel free, if there's anybody in the US that's watching this that wants to do this on their own behalf. I don't own a copyright or a patent on this idea. It's just a fun idea. I think it's a really good one. Go ahead, do it. I'm sure there are probably Facebook groups in various different countries that already do this kind of thing, although I would argue that Facebook is the doldrums of the internet right now, perhaps with the exception of Twitter. But I'm not a fan of Facebook, never have been, and I would steer clear. But the point is, I'm sure there's somebody out there that might take up that mantle, so go and ask your other favourite American YouTubers if they would like to give it a go, and good luck to them, I say. So there we go. Look, we've rambled, what now, 16 minutes. It's a special BYB Ramble extraordinaire. Thank you to anybody listening to this point. If you are, then you're in the Super Extra Cool Kids Club. I thank you so much for your attention, for your support and feedback, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. I always get a good, fun look from Mrs. Backyard Bullion when I say people have listened to 16 minutes into my waffles, and she raises an eyebrow and says, why? And honestly, I don't know why. So tell me why you listen to the end of my videos. It'd be great to hear from you. Otherwise, that is it from me for today. Have a fantastic week ahead. We'll see you on the next video. And as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.